You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
I am the knight. I am
Matt Lazowitz, and welcome to this week's episode of Bat Chat with Matt and Will, a Batman ranking podcast, where each week my co-hosts Will Nevin and I dig into 3 Batman stories, discuss them, and rank them on the big board, thus creating a giant list of Batman stories for best to worst. Will, how's it going?
Oh, Matt, it's going. We've been doing this show for 17 years now. And, our usual recording schedule is we'll do a Wednesday night show, we'll do a Sunday afternoon bonus. But today, for the very first time, we are recording an actual main episode on a Sunday afternoon, and it's strange. It's very strange.
Gonna bring some big bonus episode energy to this one.
That's right. Yeah, we were just talking off air about movies, as we are wont to do. Unfortunately, I got all busy with holiday stuff and other riffraff, and I didn't get a chance to see Sisu for a third time. So I'm still behind on that. But what'd you see since Tuesday?
Well, I saw Wake Up Dead Man.
Son of a bitch.
Which, listen, if you are one of those strange people who did not like either Knives Out or Glass Onion, then you're not going to like this one. But if you did enjoy one or both of those films, you will most assuredly enjoy this one. I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil anything, because you just need to go in and you need to appreciate the mystery as it unfolds. The social commentary in this one is sharp, but it has been in all 3. But this one is sticking to that biting satire of current America.
Ooh.
Very specifically here.
Ooh.
Yeah, the use of social media platforms and politics to intentionally divide for no more reason than influence of yourself.
Well, I mean, once you get people real angry and riled up on social media, you can get their clicks and use those clicks to sell things like ads.
I will say no more, but there is a very keen poking at that in this movie.
Fuck you, Mark Zuckerberg.
I saw Zootopia 2, which is a kids movie and is fun and is exactly what you'd expect from a Disney movie. Beautifully animated. Yeah, it's what it is.
Did you have any naughty thoughts, Matt?
No, I am not furry.
Okay, look, we love all of our furries out there.
Not yucking anyone's yum.
Yeah.
And I saw The Thing with Feathers. It is one of my...
Do you like to fuck things with feathers, Matt?
That is not what this is about.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It is based on a book called Grief is the Thing with Feathers. It is... I won't call it a horror movie. There is some aspects of that. It's more magical realism than horror. Benedict Cumberbatch is a comic book artist whose wife passed away unexpectedly, and he now has to raise his 2 sons by himself. And as he gets more caught up in the grief and the confusion, a giant, somewhat anthropomorphic crow starts talking to him, voiced by David Thewlis. And it's if the Babadook was less homicidal and more snarky.
And more crow.
But it's very well acted. The practical effect for the crow creature is appreciated. That much of it is not CG. It's, I think, at least if it's CG, it's really good CG, because I thought it was just a guy in a suit. Listen, it's not a movie to go to if you're going to be down. It comes to a good ending. They make their peace with the grief and such, but getting there is not an easy trip.
I want a pet crow.
We were just talking on CXF interview where it was put to myself and our guest by Dan, and Dan answered as well. If you could pick a familiar that was not your current pet, what would it be? And, Bat would be remarkably on brand for me, but honestly, Raven. Those things are smart.
Yeah, yeah, and you could teach them to, steal for you.
They love shiny things, and they can
Yeah.
use tools. They're the birds that can use tools. I would just be worried that it would be a little too smart. I've always appreciated having dumb cats, because when I've had smart cats, they can be real jerks.
Oh, Squeakers would never. I've had several cats over the years, and Squeakers is the first to develop what I feel like is language, and because he's a very smart boy. And this is not the kind of language that old Bobby Secundus is arguing on, about arguing on Twitter with folks about. He's not responding to commands or anything. But when he wants pets, when he wants attention, he'll just walk up to you and he'll just put his paw on you. You give him some pets, you give him some scratches, and you're done. And he puts his paw back on you. It's like, no, you're not done. You're not. You're finished when I say you're finished. And so I really appreciate that. He knows what he wants.
I spent the past 3-ish hours on the couch, trapped beneath both of my cats.
Oh, what a miserable experience.
I could not have been more content. It was just so nice. They were both sleeping and not wrestling, and just like, yep, we're just gonna lay here and be soft. Okay, that's good. They are, neither of them are particularly smart. As a matter of fact, the only smart cat I have ever lived with was Felix, who is the cat that it was Amber's cat before I met her, who was with us both for 5-6 years. He had a sort of native cunning and could be kind of a jerk when he wanted to. If you shut him out of the bedroom, if we did that to Bess, or they'd do the reach under the door thing and just, meow for a while and then give up. Felix, the cabinets in the first apartment Amber and I lived in were the kind where if you open them, they would close themselves. He would just get in front of those, open, smack, open, smack. And he would keep opening them and letting them slam shut until you gave him attention and let him into the other room. You could not sleep because he was just like, no, I'm going to just keep doing this because I know it's going to get your attention.
What a little prick.
He was a good boy, but he was way too smart for his own good. But hey, we got a guest.
There's somebody else here.
Indeed,
look at that.
There is. Let's say hi to Patreon backer and friend of the show, Sam Hopper. How you doing, Sam?
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
And an actual decent hour for all of us.
You have had cats? Do you have any pets or cats right now, Sam?
Had cats. I've got a dog right now, and I would not consider getting any other animal in the house with her. She's lovely. Her name's Esther, Black Labrador. Lovely, but she does not like sharing us with other animals.
That was very much Bess. She was Queen Bess for a reason. She did not want anybody stealing any of her attention.
It's ridiculous. I take her out for a walk and she loves playing with other dogs, but the second that they come up to me, she'll grab the lead off of me and start pulling us back to the house. Don't want to mess with that.
When there is a pet who is a one pet, it's best not, they're not going to change.
No, they aren't.
The briefest time, we had a second cat for about 10 months, only because he was a hospice. The shelter was like, this cat he's old and he's sick, and we want him to have somewhere where he can live out his last remaining days. And frankly, we were expecting it to be a few months. He was with us for nearly a year because he was just very happy. But Bess bullied him incessantly. And he was 2.5 times her size. He could have eaten her, but he immediately was like, no, I want to be your friend. And she's like, no, I don't want you to be my friend. You're in my space.
Yeah, that's very much the relationship that our previous cats had ages ago. Had one that was raised as a kitten, Smudge, just a typical black and white one. And then a few years later, we found out about a stray that was hanging around one of me mother's friends' places. But as it turned out, it was nearby some restaurants and cafes. So we thought we were going to get this emaciated stray, come back with this morbidly obese monster. Beautiful. Named him Malcolm. He was just a champagne-colored cushion, essentially. And he tried to be friendly with Smudge for a while, but she wouldn't have it. And then one day he just hit back, and then that was just... I'm going to reminisce about cats if I don't stop myself, so...
Okay, so yes, we do have Batman to discuss.
Not a single cat in what we're reading today.
No, and as we all know, there are quite a bit of cats within the Bat lore, but that's not for today. Because last time Sam was on, we talked Damian Wayne. This time we're talking 3 stories with the 3 other long-term Robins. I love Stephanie Brown, I love Carrie Kelly, but neither of them were Robin for a particularly long period of time. But the other 3 Robins, but this is at times when they were not using the identity of Robin. So we are starting with The Grail. This is Red Robin numbers 1 to 4. The writer is Christopher Yost, with pencils by Ramon Box, inks by Box, art Thibert and Guy Major, colors by Major, letters by Sal Cipriano, and edited by Mike Martz and Janel Aslan. The cover dates are August to November of 2009. Tim Drake is sure that Bruce Wayne is alive, even if no one else believes him. At the end of his rope, haunted by the deaths of so many people he loves, Tim will do anything to get the proof he needs. He'll push the limits of the rules Bruce set down, and even team up with the League of Assassins in his quest for the evidence that Bruce is still out there. First, quick problematic creator watch. Art Thibert is affiliated with Comicsgate, so boo.
Nice.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So here we are at the beginning of the Dick Bat era. This would have launched the same month as Batman and Robin, and this is where Tim was, why Tim wasn't in the Morrison stuff until the end of that at Return of Bruce Wayne. The early issues of Red Robin lead into Tim's appearance in Return of Bruce Wayne. That's sort of setting the stage for where we are at this point.
The book goes into it as well, but even though everyone is dealing with the death of Bruce Wayne, it's worth noting that for Tim Drake, this is just the latest in a long, long list of traumas that he's gone through, which is why he's more likely to have had a psychotic break than, say, Dick or Alfred. The ones that the book doesn't go into is, before all of this, his biological father, Jack Drake, was murdered in an identity crisis. His best friend, Connor Kent, was murdered in Infinity Crisis. Everyone had to deal with war games and war crimes.
Boo.
Yep.
In Titans, he had to deal with them writing Cassandra as a villain. And any story where you have to deal with Deathstroke is grounds for trauma anyway. Most recently, Death of Bruce Wayne and losing the Robin title immediately after this. This is when he's only just been adopted by Bruce Wayne. So he suddenly had a bit of stability and it went crashing down.
And also the death of his other close friend, Bart Allen. Bart was dead at this point. And in theory, Dana, his stepmom, Jack's second wife, died in Bloodhaven when chemo dropped on Bloodhaven during Infinite Crisis.
It's a minor miracle he hasn't broken before now.
You'd think they really did a number on Tim during this period. Connor and Bart would be coming back right around this point, but they were resurrected in Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds, the last issue, which was so ridiculously late that it came out months after Final Crisis. So they couldn't actually address the fact that his friends were still alive, or alive again, without spoiling the end of that series.
Yeah, and, well, besides which, I can't remember if it's issue 3 or 4, makes it clear that at the very least Connor's still dead at this time. So
yeah, because I think they come back in that series, but I think the resurrection, they're in the future with the Legion until quite a bit later.
yeah.
So yeah, but as far as they know, Connor is still dead, and it's not a good time to be poor Tim Drake.
Yeah,
No.
he's not having a good time.
No, and he is darker here. He's not breaking the one rule, but he is dancing right on the line with the one rule right here.
And he's kind of growling about it.
The reason he takes up the Red Robin costume that Will hates is
I
because
mean, he just kind of looks like a sperm. It's fine.
he looks like Dr. Midnight, which is funny because then his next Red Robin costume that isn't this looks like Black Condor. Pretty much every Red Robin costume is just ripping off some other obscure DC superhero. But he took that costume up because the last one to wear it was Jason Todd. The costume is tarnished. It is not the costume of one of the Bat family at this point. So he can get away with wearing it and straddling those lines, and he can always just blame it on Jason Todd.
He even says itself that he chose the costume because it's already tainted. I didn't know that Jason Todd wore it. I just thought, oh, so this costume's just another sign that he's having a mental breakdown, which works. So
Jason wore it during Countdown to Infinite Crisis when he, Donna Troy, and Kyle Rayner were traveling through the multiverse looking for Ray Palmer. They stopped over in the Kingdom Come universe, and Jason took the Red Robin costume with him.
yeah, right. I just immediately tried to forget that as soon as it was done. So
And you were right to do it, because the less said about Countdown to Final Crisis, the better. Ugh.
I like the narration boxes that it used here. I like Tim's voice. I like the fact that in every scenario, he's always analyzing the situation. So when the assassins first assault him, he's immediately looking for clues of, all right, Z, so that's that one. Prue must be this one. And also, like little bits he's in the middle of it, and Prue starts shooting, and then he suddenly realizes, wait, Prue, as in Prudence? And he's having trouble focusing because he's under that much pressure. And it happens throughout it. In the first issue where he deals with the cyborg with firearms, he has a mild diversion with firearms. Manos de Ego, like he's trying to think, wait, what would that be? And he's clearly still got his intelligence and wits, but there's that much going on that he's just, you can see like the stress going on. And actually, in the moments when he's alone, where I highlighted this, I know I'm right until I think about it. Then I know I'm crazy. No, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. Even he knows that this is a desperate gamble, but it really captures just how this quest is very much just the one thing that's stopping him from just breaking down completely.
To the point that he's willing to accept, as the one person who seems to believe he's right and is willing to work with him on this, Ra's al Ghul.
Yes.
If there's one person in the DC universe who would be convinced that death is not a final barrier to anything.
And so he's working with these assassins as we get these throughout sort of sporadic interludes to members of the League of Assassins being assassinated themselves. The first year of Red Robin is 3 4-issue arcs that are entirely tied into Tim dealing with the League of Assassins. So this is sort of act 1 of your typical 3-act structure, which is why the ending doesn't completely resolve the story. It resolves Tim's quest for evidence that Bruce is alive, but it leaves us on a cliffhanger leading into the next arc, which deals with this organization that is hunting the League of Assassins.
The Council of Spiders.
Who would have, from what I remember of this arc, even though Yost only does the first 12 issues, Fabian Nicieza, who picks the book up and does the back half of the book, continues with that, and none of it gets resolved because, oh right, New 52.
New 52, baby!
Oh, the New 52, ruining books. But getting back on track, I like the character work in this. We don't see much of Dick in this, but this is very early into Dick Bat, and while he's trying to be responsible for Damien, it's clear that he's possibly overcompensating on the overly serious part, and it's not until like the end of the flashback that he realizes how hard he's been on Tim. And obviously, I can't have an episode without mentioning Damian Wayne, and he's at his worst, but someone actually decks him for it, which is the only appropriate response to this version of the character. The most damning thing about Damien at this point is Alfred, learning about that, goes to congratulate Tim for it. If Alfred is giddy about you getting decked for being an arsehole, then you're done messed up.
Damien is definitely at his worst here. And we see Tim cutting everyone who is a part of his life out. We see that the scene in the Batcave in issue 1. We see him interact with Spoiler in the flashbacks in issue 2, with Wonder Girl in issue 3, and then him and Dick facing off, just the two of them, in issue 4. It even cuts to Tim getting calls from Ives, his civilian best friend, to Jason Bard and Officer Harper, who he was working with at the end of the first ongoing Robin volume. And he just is not responding to anyone. He is closing in on himself.
Well, he's definitely his adoptive father's son, because he's behaving just like Bruce does when he's overwhelmed, which, again...
Absolutely. To the point where he himself admits, when we get to the final issue, he's gotten so sloppy. He was using his matches Malone, Alvin Draper, and after committing a brazen robbery, he doesn't swap identities, and so
he has to be bailed out by the assassins, and it's very clear that these assassins are not the top tier.
No, these are the farm team that Raish is just like, yes, you just go. I mean, Tim would have taken them out himself if Raish hadn't had them retreat on at least one occasion. We also, just to establish for the series itself, get introduced to Tamara Fox, one of Lucius's daughters, who will be a recurring character throughout this run. Introduced isn't the right word, because she was an established... Lucius's children were established characters.
It's setting up importance for the rest of the series, basically.
Right. And giving her something of a personality, which Lucius's children generally did not have before this era.
Just a brief shout out. We just brought it up to American Occupied Baghdad. A fun thing to revisit, especially in your comic books.
One of those, at the time, that was the way it was.
It's fun to go to old comics, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Sometimes you get reminded that, things were better, and sometimes you get reminded of things like that.
The art is fine, but I love the way Tim is written in this. Obviously, he's trying to be darker and less aligned with the Batmantle, but even in his inner monologues, when he's cornered by the Huntsman, he starts with, I know 7 ways to get out of this, and only one of them doesn't break him. But that's immediately followed with, I'm in the wrong here, I don't want to hurt him. He's not naturally an aggressive punk, and even when he's in danger, he still doesn't follow through with that.
He's still my Tim Drake, even if he's a Tim Drake who is pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
Christopher Yost, who wrote this, has very, very few DC credits. It's really just this series and a couple one-shots and a 2-issue arc of Streets of Gotham, and that's it. He's best known as a Marvel writer and as an animation writer. He and his partner Craig Kyle are the co-creators of X-23.
Yep. I was just going to say, even though his DC credits are more limited, he's got a lot of experience writing for Marvel. He did a lot of the new X-Men back in the 2000s, which was very much the student book about all students, including the unenviable task of introducing 20-odd new students to the class, and then halfway through killing off like 80% of them. So he's had a lot of experience writing teens going through it.
Oh, yeah. And also, just as his probably, aside from creating X-23, best known credits as having written both Thor the Dark World and Thor Ragnarok. So, he's got some
He's doing
serious
well.
chops. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. So, Will, I mean, what did you think?
It is in a very particular moment in the overall DC universe, right? Tim is certainly obsessed over Bruce and his death, and certainly convinced in his idea that Bruce is still alive. Fun little adventure. I think a lot like the next story we're going to read, except without so many of the spy hero trappings. But yeah, fun little book.
Fun fact that I learned while researching for our Return of Bruce Wayne episode. The reason why Tim finds the cave with the bat paintings, the mural, not in Gotham, despite Return of Bruce Wayne indicating that Bruce was constantly being dropped in Gotham over and over again, is that in Morrison's original draft of Return of Bruce Wayne, Bruce was jumping not just through time, but space. So he would have been all around the world. So that would have worked. But that was not altered until after this. So while it doesn't necessarily line up with what we know from Return of Bruce Wayne, at the time it did.
Turns out it wasn't three enterprises initiating the tachyon beam. Who knew?
Anyone have anything else they want to add?
Just one last thing. When Tim finally finds the mural and realizes that this hasn't been a gigantic waste of time, he likens the reason he started this to when he realized Dick Grayson was Robin and Bruce was Batman. It was theory, it was faith. The evidence was insane and the trail was cold, but I knew. That's the only thing that's kept him going. But it highlights Tim's greatest strength, where he has a great intuition as a detective. And yes, he can get obsessive, but his instincts are usually spot on. And in this case, no one could have predicted that Batman was actually sent backwards through time and whatnot. And Tim doesn't know that now, but his instincts tell him that Bruce is somehow alive, and there you go.
Minor spoiler for when we eventually cover the end of this first year. At the very end in issue 12, Yost's last issue, when he and Raish are facing each other down, Raish addresses Tim with the honorific of detective. The only one he has ever called that other than Bruce. Raish mentions that very specifically, that he has earned the right to be called detective as well.
Yes, and early in this, Tim, in one of his inner monologues, is reflecting on when he's working with Raish. He would often refer to Bruce as detective. That's a sign of respect. It's setting that up.
I have one final question to the noted Tim Drake fan. Is this the grittiest you would ever have him?
Yes. You can't push him any further. If you do, he becomes Jason Todd.
And there's already a Jason Todd.
Right. I have no problem with Tim being sort of haunted. He started out as the Robin with the cushiest life and has slowly had all of that stripped away from him by this point. You understand why he is this way at this point, but you can't push him any further without him becoming Jason, becoming so angry that he's lost completely in the anger. And that's not who the character is. They continue to dance with that through this run. Even after Bruce comes back, the end of this run has to do with Tim wrestling with how he feels about his father's murderer. Since Captain Boomerang comes back from the dead at the end of Blackest Night, and Tim's own anger that his father, who did nothing wrong, is still dead, but this lowlife is somehow alive again, and how unfair that is. That never gets wrapped up because that's the last issue of Red Robin.
Oh, gee.
Well, One thing I will say, I think the reason that this darker turn for Tim works is because it's very clearly temporary, because Tim might not know it, but the audience knows that Batman is alive. So we know that this quest will eventually end with the discovery of his being alive again, and that Tim will have that support going forward. Even at the end of Final Crisis, you know that Bruce Wayne is alive in some form. So it was never a question of, oh, is Bruce Wayne gone forever? No, even though comics will pretend that, this one was very clearly, no. This is just a temporary shift.
That heavy silence means it's time. Put Red Robin #1 for the Grail on the big board.
We are at 645 stories on the big board.
God damn.
Number 1 is the post-crisis origin of Batman. Batman Year 1.
Coming in at a sexy 69, it's Batman 14 to 15 Rooftops. Oh, yeah.
At 150 is the first arc of the Secret Six ongoing, Unhinged. At 300 is Clueless, the arc of the Tim Drake Robin series, where he deals with Cluemaster and his 2 equally clueless cronies.
Coming in real high, not nearly as close to the bottom as it once was, it's Batgirl Volume 4, 10 to 13, Nightfall Rising, but not that Nightfall.
At 450 is Dark Knight, a true Batman story, the autobiographical graphic novel from Paul Dini.
What a creep.
All the way at the bottom, at 645, 3 Jokers.
Boo!
All right, well, I said something. What do we think of this in comparison to Clueless? That at 300, a lighter story, obviously. That's just, a fun little Tim and Spoiler teaming up to stop Cluemaster's attempt to steal a bunch of cash that, as it turns out, he couldn't have really stolen anyway because he's a dumbass.
I hate to be a little mimeograph machine here. I'm not sure if it goes much higher or much lower. I think it's a good range. Probably somewhere between the Tim Drake special at 269 and I mean I probably wouldn't put this below, just to pick a random number, 310 super heavy. So I like the range you came up with.
It's a good book.
It's got a lot of good character work, but it's very much still just set up at this point, so it's hard to rate it too highly yet.
All right, let me start here with a thought.
Okay.
I think I'm going to bring the floor up a little.
All right.
League of Shadows at 291. Some really good Cassandra Cain bits, that first issue especially with her and the ballet, and some really good stuff in there, but that is an overlong story. These 4 issues do not overstay their welcome. Tim does not spend 12 issues trying to determine if Bruce is alive. It answers the question and sets up other things, but this story is in itself a pretty compact little piece.
I'll do this not specifically because it'll irritate Matt, but kind of. I will go one above in terms of a floor. Batman, Devil's Advocate.
I'm okay.
Because that story bugged me.
I know it did.
I know.
Trying to see what else is in that range that is similarly character focused.
Refresh me, Robin Annual #4.
That is yet another retelling of the origin of Dick Grayson. Chuck Dixon, Jason Armstrong. It's in the middle of the list because it is a perfectly cromulent comic. It does some good stuff. There's a couple of neat little additional twists to that origin story there, but it's not anything too grandiose, hence it existing sort of with a bunch of other, Chuck Dixon, like this is okay comics right there in the middle.
maybe this goes higher. Maybe this is more like 270s rather than 280s.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. All right, well, here's 272 Succession. That is the Detective Comics Armageddon 2001 annual, which is heavily a Tim Drake story because Bruce is sort of broken and Tim has to take up the mantle of Batman and isn't ready for it and gets killed. And thus, Bruce has to once again become Batman and actually deals with the League of Assassins because it was the League who broke Bruce, and it becomes a Talia story in the end, a Bruce versus Talia story. So we've got some similarities in there.
I'd probably put this above that.
All right, well, right above that is the second volume of One Operation Joker. So now
that's
it's
fun.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's my turn to be like, all right, well, that's one of your babies.
I mean, the first volume was stupendous. Second volume, solid.
So why don't we say then right above that, right below the Crimes of Two-Face, the first appearance of Two-Face?
Yeah, the new 271.
Sounds good.
Not bad for a non-Morrison book in the Rebirth era. Well, Batman Reborn era. Rebirth's a different thing, but
Yes.
oh god.
I think when you get outside of the Batman proper at that point, that is generally some pretty good stuff. I like Red Robin. You've got the Kate Kane Batwoman from Greg Rucka over in Detective. Streets of Gotham, I enjoy. Gotham City Sirens. It's been a long time since I've read Gotham City Sirens. I'm trying to remember.
It has its moments.
Yeah. And the Morrison stuff itself. It's really that the Tony Daniel Batman itself that is sort of meh.
Yeah, I was mostly thinking about that because the last arc of that brings Gilda Dent back, which is fun.
Oh yeah. A whole bunch of things with the Falcones there that again never gets resolved at all. Thank you, New 52.
I do need ideas for one of my future episodes, so I'll bookmark that now.
Oh, yay. Speaking of the New 52, our second story is Agent of Spyral. This is Grayson numbers 1 to 4. The writers are Tom King and Tim Seeley, with pencils by Mikel Janin, inks by Janine, Guillermo Ortega, and Juan Castro, colors by Jeremy Cox, letters by Carlos M. Manuel, and edited by Mark Doyle, Katie Kubert, and Matt Humphreys. The cover dates are September to October of 2014 and December 2014 to January 2015. The world thinks Dick Grayson is dead. So what does a dead superhero who's not really dead do? Why, he goes undercover in a super secret spy organization that is investigating superheroes, of course. With his partner, Helena Bertinelli, Dick is tracking down advanced metahuman biotech while also trying to find out exactly what Spyral's plans for the metahuman community are.
Oh, goodness. Last time I was here, I mentioned that I cannot be objective about anything with John Kent. This is another thing I can't be objective about because it combines so many of my favorite things. Super spy nonsense, super science nonsense, and Dick Grayson beefcake, and of course, elements from the Morrison run being followed up on. So, with that in mind, apologies in advance for any gushing that I will do.
I forgot how fun this is. Yes, there's darkness and there's angst and there's a cannibal, but it is
Look, she needed food, okay? She had high calorie demands. The bodies needed to go somewhere. It was a reasonable solution.
Now you get the answer to the Poppy from Batman and Robin Eternal. There you go. All the talk of her being a cannibal. Now you know why she was a cannibal. But yeah, this is possibly the most fun thing Tom King has written.
Well, I think the fact that Tim Seeley is listed as writer and Tom King is plots probably helped a lot with that. We haven't covered it because it's a Future's End tie-in, but in the same trade paper, Tom King writes the Future's End tie-in, and that's very much a Tom King book.
Yeah.
Take that as you will.
There is definitely some Tom King in here. Issue 3 is very much feels Tom King with the old gun who lost his sons in a mass casualty event and his own eyesight, and now is haunted and sees through his guns. That is a very Tom King trauma character.
Well, especially with how that one ends with Dick talking him down, only for Agent 8 to gun him down and him to gun down Agent 8. And it's all womp womp.
Yeah, yes, exactly. This is Tom King clearly working through the loss of people in combat sort of thing.
You don't say.
But you also get Midnighter and the banter between Grayson and Midnighter in their fight is delightful. And if there is one character who you just look at and the trope of two heroes meet and they fight, well, with a lot of characters, it's like, okay, I get it. With Midnighter, it's like, oh yeah, I get it. That's how Midnighter is. That's how Midnighter flirts. And Beefcake Dick Grayson, yeah, Midnighter is going to flirt.
That definitely continues on later in the run as well.
This is a good period for Midnighter between his appearances here and the Steve Orlando series. This is when I felt like Midnighter actually started to kind of fit in the DC universe versus early in the New 52, where bringing in a lot of those Wildstorm characters didn't feel particularly organic and more felt like we're just cramming these characters into this universe.
One thing I think is really smart about this is Midnighter is very much a grim, gritty 90s character. But in this story, we have Dick Grayson working for an outright villainous organization up against Midnighter, who's actively trying to better himself and working with the plant organization to try just against other people who have manipulated people's minds. Like, obviously, he's still an anti-hero, but it's a wonderful little... Obviously, at this point, Midnighter doesn't know that Dick is a double agent. All he knows is that he's a hot guy in Spyral who he can't recognize the face of.
But that ass. I know that ass anywhere.
Yes. And we mentioned that there's a lot of dark stuff with it. Obviously, issue 2 deals with a cannibal. Issue 1 deals with a Russian who's going to turn into an active nuke. And issue 3 is probably the darkest, with the gunman who lost the use of his eyes. So it's surprising how just fun it is. Part of it is Dick Grayson is really rolling with his circus performer sort of, like at one point he even tells Helena that you only act like this when you're about to do the biggest stunts. That's when you put on a show and try to put the smiles on. But also, I think what really helps the tone is the colours. So many splash pages with very bright colours, like the Spyral backgrounds going all those bright pinks and purples, very sort of 60s. I'm just so used to most Batman books having just lots of greys and dark. And also, even from the beginning, even though Dick is a super spy and the cover is Dick with a pistol drawn ready, and then the issue starts and he uses his pistol as a throwing weapon.
I remember there being controversy when that cover was released.
Yeah.
That there was a big reaction from fans, like, wait, he's Dick Grayson. He's not supposed to be using a gun. And whichever of them, Seeley or King, was interviewed, they're like, don't worry, we address that right out of the gate. And as you said, it's addressed there in issue 1. And issue 3 is all about that. It's all about guns. And there's that great line towards the end where Dick says something.
I've got it here. It's true. Guns aren't magic. They just make things go faster. But what's the damn rush?
Exactly. It's a really good line. That issue is a tragedy. And that one, just there's another line that I specifically highlighted where Agent 8, she grew up in Kansas. The nearest town to her was this town called Smallville. And you get the line, that's the trouble with you super types. No Smallville graduates in the sky. That is a very Tom King line.
Hey, did you know Superman? He's from Smallville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Now,
on the other hand, immediately before that, you have that wonderful James Bond-esque transition where him and Agent 8 are in the shooting range, and it transitions from that to a panel of them having sex in a very sort of James Bond-esque way. And the colours immediately brighten when it switches to the sex scene, and it's, oh God, I love this book.
Oh yeah, no, this is very Bond. This whole thing is really heavily Bond influenced in a good way. I think it's just it's a lot of fun. And you've got Helena Huntress as Moneypenny in the that they are not going to get together, but there will be the banter between them, the flirty banter. And this, for those out there who weren't entrenched in this, this is the first appearances of a New 52 era Helena Bertinelli. The Huntress who appeared before this in the New 52 was the Earth 2 Helena Wayne Huntress who had come over to this Earth. So this is where we first see Helena Bertinelli.
This version
of her.
Mm-hmm. One thing I love about Helena here is there's very immediately an attraction between her and Dick, but when it comes to the actual framing, you don't get loads of tits and arse shots of Huntress. It's always Dick gets plenty of objectification, but Helena is always in control because she's very much the professional here. I love that dynamic. I love that she seems very loyal to Spyral, which is this very horrible organization. But at the same time, she's clearly covering for Dick when people start suspecting that he's making calls outside of the base. But I just love a sort of femme fatale dynamic with super spies. So, like I said, I will just gush if you let me, so feel free to tell us to stop. Oh, just on the subject of gushing, Dick is obviously working with Bruce. I love that when he contacts Bruce's cover identity, Mr. Malone. Of course it bloody is.
Yes. Oh, yes. Mr. Malone that makes me happy. We can thank that art. I mean, Mikel Janin is just, we've talked about him a whole bunch with the other work he's done with King on King's Batman run. But his work here is stunning. And nobody draws a prettier Dick Grayson than Mikel Janin, except for maybe Nicola Scott. But even then, it's right on the line there.
Certainly no one draws more shirtless, maskless Dick Grayson, so that's much appreciated. I love that in issue 4, the mission that's set up in the first 2 pages is literally just resolved in a page turn, and the rest of it is just antics at the school with the students at the school wanting to ogle Dick. It's a lovely little sort of way to get over the grim darkness of the previous issue and resetting the tone. Right, we're going to have dark elements, but this is overall still going to be a very fun spy thing. We're not forgetting that.
This book does a really good job of juggling tone in a way that is not jarring. It's got that classic X-Men, okay, we have the issue where after the big momentous arc, the X-Men play baseball. And you have a quiet issue. And that's what that is. It's Dick being chased across the grounds by a bunch of the St. Hadrian's schoolgirls.
That's it.
And you get that beautiful page that shows you the entire layout of the grounds and tracing them.
Instead of just doing the traditional map of the X mansion or something, you get the bird's eye view of the grounds, but it's showing you the route that Dick is leading the students through, and it's I love it.
I was talking about the Midnighter stuff before, but I'm just looking at the bits and bobs from my notes that I highlighted. And Midnighter has a line about Dick's fighting style being like jazz. And I thought that is such an evocative line and such a perfect synopsis of how Dick would fight versus Bruce, who's about efficacy, about the fewest blows. For Dick, it's all casual. It's all flowing.
More to the point, adaptable.
Yes.
One of the things I would always love is any series which highlights the strengths of a specific Robin. It's very easy in pop culture to just think of them as a homogenous the Robins, but they all have their own strengths. Dick is athletic, sure, but he's also incredibly charismatic, and no one else in the Bat family, not even Bruce, could really carry this off. Because Dick being just charming isn't a performance. Early on, he's scolded for not using the mind control implant to convince his target to come with him, because he doesn't really need it. And the times that he actually does use the hypnos implant all end up backfiring anyway. I forget his name, but when the Russian he's escorting is about to go nuclear, literally because comics, and at first he considers trying to convince him he's a friend, but instead Dick immediately realizes, no, that won't work. What I need to do is I manipulated you, you're a loser. And he does that intentionally to get him to vent off. And that's the sort of thing that wouldn't occur to a lot of people, because he's just really good at reading people. And again, as he mentions in issue 2, that a lot of this is going back to his roots as a performer. And in the end of issue 4, Helena corners him and goes, I know why you're doing this. It's because you miss being in the spotlight. You miss being able to perform and not having access to Nightwing because of events in Forever Evil, I think. Point is, you came here because you need to perform, and it ends with the flirtatious, them running off into the night to chase each other. And, oh, God, I love that sort of dynamic. I love any sort of femme fatale hero dynamic. I love any sort of Catwoman dynamic, which we'll have room to talk about next time I come here, I'm sure. But hint, hint, plug, plug.
I will say, at the end of issue 1, I started getting irritated at something, and then I realized, okay, the Hypnos gives them a pass on this. At the end of those issues, as these body parts, the MacGuffin of this story is that there was a being called Paragon who Midnighter knocked out of orbit and who kind of exploded, and all of his organs are now being grafted into other people and giving them superpowers. And as you get those organs, you start seeing some of the files that Spyral has on various metahumans. And on the Bruce Wayne, or the Batman file, it's identity Bruce Wayne, confirmation, Dr. Leslie Tompkins. I'm like, wait, there's no way Leslie sold that. Oh, they whammied her. Okay, I can get past that because they obviously had to use the Hypnos. Because there's no way Leslie is selling out Bruce Wayne.
And for
Did
all
they
of
just walk up to everybody and ask if they know who Batman is?
Well, the thing is, once you suspect that Bruce Wayne is Batman, it's very easy to figure out, oh, who has ties to Bruce? Maybe to his past? That's an obvious one. And for all of Wondrous Virtues, Leslie Tompkins hasn't been trained to resist sci-fi brainwashing, so we can give her a pass on that one.
Even I can. I will also point out as one thing that I don't know if it jumped out at you, Sam, as a native of the UK, but when issue 2, when Dick is in the pub, or he's talking to Helena about being in the pub, he's talking to Helena later, like they're arguing about this new Doctor Who, and they spell Doc DR period. It's like, no, you silly Americans, it is never DR. It is spelled out Doctor. It is never abbreviated.
It's a proper noun. It's not a
exactly. Very annoyed. Again, that
on
was
a lighter note. Him going through his British accents brought us back to reading Claremont. I shouldn't love it, but I love reading attempts to capture the various dialects of Britain. It's always fun to see.
In the same way, I'm sure that there is anyone from New Orleans must absolutely love seeing people try to get Gambit's accent to appear phonetically.
Right, it's the exact same phenomenon.
Last little bit I want to note is we get the introduction of this new version of Spyral. We have not yet covered the back half of Batman Inc. that deals with more of the Spyral stuff, but this obviously spins out of that. And here with Mr. Minos and Dr. Nets, there is no, okay, they might be good guys doing the wrong thing for the right reason here. Minos is obviously Machiavellian, and the fact that he is working with one of the daughters of noted Nazi war criminal Dr. Deadless, who is embracing her father's legacy and wearing his freaky compound eye goggles. Like, yeah, these aren't gonna be the good guys. This isn't S.H.I.E.L.D. or Checkmate, who sometimes do sketchy things for the right reasons. No, these are not good.
There's no illusions of, oh, is Spyral corrupt? No, we know there's something wrong. We just don't know what the plan is. And so it's not a question of, can Dick figure out if Spyral is nefarious? It's, can Dick figure out the specific plans before his cover is blown?
a great moment is when Dick realizes that Mr. Minos is so paranoid, he has nanites in his office that eat all of his skin cells that he sloughs off so no one can find out who he is. And Dick starts like brushing himself off like they're bugs and not teeny tiny microscopic things that you can't just brush off, is a funny little moment. But again, this book does a really good job of balancing the tones.
Like I said, I cannot be objective about this. I will just keep finding things to love. Like how in the third issue, where he almost has a little bit of a, not a breakdown, but like just a vulnerable moment where he keeps Bruce on the comm because he just needs to talk to someone and get out of being on the clock, and they start reminiscing about the time they spent with Alfred, and it pans to Alfred cleaning the manor, with Alfred having no idea that Dick is even alive. God damn it, why do you make Alfred suffer so?
That's okay. Alfred's suffering would end soon.
God damn it. Tom King really had it out for Alfred from the beginning, didn't he?
Oh, that means it's time to put Grayson 1 to 4, Agent of Spyral on the big board.
What do you think, Will? Story of the night?
No objection from me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it does the last story a little bit better. It's fancier, it's weirder. Like Sam, I love a good crazy spy story with spy gizmos and intrigue and double agents and all that stuff. Yeah, I'd love to cover more arcs and see how this book unfurls.
Okay. So I'm looking, if the Grail is at 271. Here's a good one because Sam's here as well. 200 right now is Born to Kill, the first arc of the Tomasi Batman and Robin.
Born to Kill is, if I'm being honest, it's probably more important, but I like this a lot more.
This is so much fun.
I'm glad I don't have to make these choices regularly.
I mean, I think I'm gonna ceiling it. I'm trying to find a hard, definite ceiling.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't mind any Grayson arc being the new 69 or whatnot, but that's for purely juvenile reasons.
Be pretty sexy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think this is quite making it there.
No. Even I know it's not that good.
I think the hard ceiling for me, and it's probably not this high, but still hard ceiling, is probably 150. That first arc of Secret Six. Just all the stuff that gets done there, all that character work, the stuff they do with Bane, the stuff they do with Catman, the absolute horror that is Junior and Ragdoll. I think that is just, there's a lot going on there. So
You're
I think
right, damn it. You're right.
That's a hard ceiling, but
I'd probably say 175 is another hard spot. Player on the other side.
yeah. So in that case, I'm thinking in between 200 and 175. So that's a good range. I'd probably put this above the Batman Who Laughs at 188.
I was just thinking about that because that fucking thing just drags and drags and drags. And exactly has zero light in it.
Right, but it winds up that high, A, because it's beautiful, and B, because it has some interesting things to say about Batman.
Yes.
187, the first Tim Drake series, that first miniseries. It's another globe-hopping adventure. It's not individual stories. It's one continuous arc. I actually think I might put this above that. I like that story a lot, but again, there's a fun to this. So now we're in between 175 and 187. That's we're in a much narrower window.
What about 180?
Oh, talk about your no light whatsoever. Night Cries is real good, beautiful to look at, but I think that has some issues in the end with the hats on hats. With suddenly the guy is psychic with this weird trauma power. I think the new 180, in between You Should Have Seen Him, the three cops talking about different encounters with Batman in one night, and Night Cries. So the new 180 is the spot.
Good spot. But the list's getting pretty big. It's hard to even break the top 300, let alone 2.
You bring in some fun and some spy stuff, and it's you're hitting some sweet spots for what various of us enjoy. And the Mikkel Janine art sure doesn't hurt.
Oh, if it was judged on art alone, I would have argued much more fervently.
And our final story of the episode is Red Hood Outlaws Volume 1. This is the Red Hood Outlaws webtoon strips numbers 1 to 11. The writer is Patrick R. Young, with art from Nico Basunyan, colors from Javier Rodriguez Vejeres, Lorenzo De Santo, and Camille Cruz, ink assists from Javier Rodriguez Vejeres, backgrounds by Sebastian Franchini, letters by Kyle Hunsinger, produced by Tyler Beckett, Osman Dukurai, and Mickey Onda, with print layouts from Tyler Lenaz and Angelo Concepcion, and print letters by Toriana Wilkinson. The initial release dates are August 14th of 2022 to October 9th of 2022. Red Hood and his team, the Outlaws, have been hired by mobster Franco Bertinelli to retrieve a stolen artifact for him. An artifact that is currently on Dinosaur Island. But dealing with crooks comes with certain perils, including the chance that you'd be lied to and that you might run afoul of the Justice League. Oh, and isn't Franco Bertinelli, Huntress's dad, dead? Something definitely is fishy here, and the Outlaws might just be in way over their heads. So just a little background. Sam came to me with this episode of, I did Damien, so let's do 3 other Robins. So he came with the first arc on Red Robin, the first arc of Grayson, and then something with Red Hood.
It was the Death of the Family tie-in in Red Hood and Titans, which is ghastly. But the problem is, the only other Red Hood stuff that I could bear to read, you've already covered. But I didn't want to drop the theme. Regardless of whatever we say about this book, good or bad, it could have been a lot worse, Will.
It absolutely could have been. And this was something that was out that I buy the print volumes of these. And it was like, okay, I haven't gotten around to reading this yet. Yeah, I think we all grabbed the print volume on this. And so I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. And honestly, this was enjoyable. I found this, it's not Wayne Family Adventures good, but it was nowhere near as grimdark as so much Jason Todd stuff is, or so hung up on Jason's trauma.
Yeah, I mean, it does exist in kind of a weird space, not in the main line, not as family friendly as Wayne Family Adventures, but Bizarro wears a cowboy hat, so it's got that going for it.
I've no idea why Red Hood ended up working with Bizarro and Artemis in main continuity, because I dropped off of that series long before it got to that point. But I did appreciate the dynamic. I like that they're setting up that Bizarro is very much the sad clown. He's goofy, and obviously his speech makes him goofy, but clearly there's something going on there when he has that psychic attack and just sees Superman just berating him, and the fact that he's constantly listening to music and just tuning the world out. From one depressed man to another, I recognize when you try to block everything out.
Bizarro am always happy.
Yes.
I honestly cannot remember how Jason came to work with Artemis and Bizarro either.
But you don't really need to know, which is the beauty of this. All you need to know is, for various reasons, they aren't associated with their more well-known counterparts. Artemis was someone associated with Wonder Woman, but no longer is. Bizarro obviously has that link with Superman. And Red Hood is very firmly in no fuck you dad mode, which is why he's not with Bruce Wayne.
Which is, again, why this does not necessarily line up in continuity with Wayne Family Adventures, despite we have seen the Outlaws in Wayne Family Adventures at other points. Going into this, I'd wondered if this was in continuity, and if it is, it takes place before Wayne family adventures.
I could see it being the backstory, because even though one of the early lines that Jason has is working with Batman was great and all, but it didn't feel like family. A later scene proves that he's basically just letting his current anger Bruce get to him, because you see him later just playing online with Damien, Tim, and Dick, and even mentions Tim smarter. Damien, he's a lot more like me than I will ever admit. They are a family. It's just that he's currently fighting with Daddy Bruce at the minute, and well, whether it's legitimate or not is an exercise for future volumes, I assume, but
I will definitely say, coming out of this, I am curious to see where this goes. Since this first volume is sort of a contained adventure throughout the first 9 chapters, and
11.
then the last 2 chapters...
Right. Sorry.
1 through 9 is Dinosaur Island, and then them handing the artifact over to Bertinelli and finding out what's going on. And then 10 and 11 are set up for what feels like the plot of the rest of the strip. Because this strip is complete. This is not ongoing like Wayne Family Adventures is. This is 5 print volumes, and that's the entire story.
Oh, holy crap, I might actually be able to own the entire thing.
I've got them all sitting there, and I'm ready to move to read a little more, because I'm curious, because those who haven't read it, the setup at the end is the Justice League, the core league, has to leave Earth in pursuit of a villain. And Jason was being Jason about things, and so Bruce like, okay, fine, we have to leave. You and your friends, you're the Justice League for the next 30 days.
Yes, but he also gives them an ultimatum of, right, this is the last time I'm bailing you out. If you fail this time, not only will I stop funding you, which incidentally, clearly Bruce still cares if he's actually funding him, but not only will I stop funding you, but we'll stop protecting you, and you will, all laws of West warrants you've got, yeah, they'll be active, and you're not going to get out of it. And that might seem like an extreme ultimatum for Bruce, but considering that because of his cockiness, Jason Todd has inadvertently launched a Martian invasion that may take over the Earth, that's a pretty big screw-up, even on Jason Todd's many screw-ups and disagreements.
Yes. I was surprised when we see Martian Manhunter getting such a big part here. Never a complaint. I love Martian Manhunter. We still need to do a Batman and Martian Manhunter episode at some point. I really want to do one of those. But that we get this whole plot winds up being about another rogue Martian attempting to resurrect Mars. And it's like, okay, hey, great. Not the normal rogue Martian. This is a new character, Decay, not Ma'al-Efik. Excuse me as I, gag on all the gutturals. Martian and Klingon have a lot in common with all those gutturals in there.
You have offended every single Martian and Klingon listener we have, Matthew. Good job.
Unfortunately, we don't have any Martians to correct our pronunciation, so we'll just have to guess at it.
Yeah, true. Starting this book out on Dinosaur Island sets a tone.
Yes, especially considering how grim and gritty and in the underworld that Red Hood usually is. This is the equivalent of, to go back to X-Men, taking them to the Savage Land or to space for an arc. Like, it's very much completely outside their usual wheelhouse.
You're throwing Jason into the deep end, but he's still acting like it's no big deal.
But it also helps to serve as an introduction to Bizarro and Artemis, because while it's out of his wheelhouse for them, that's just their traditional shenanigans.
Bizarro treating a pterodon like a bucking bronco is charming as hell.
It is.
Bizarro make new enemy.
And early on, when they're on Dinosaur Island, they've got the dinosaur, and then whoever is after them winds up blowing them up and killing that dinosaur. And when you find out that is Jean, it's a little hard to swallow. They explain it, but that kind of felt like, did you realize it was going to be Martian Manhunter who was doing this at the beginning? And then you had written yourself into a corner of, I need to explain why Martian Manhunter killed this poor innocent animal. That's very out of character for Jean. And yes, they wind up again like, oh, he was preparing to, near miss them to try to drive them off, and he was attacked by a dinosaur, and so the blast went wide. But that's one of those things that when you read it strikes me as, oh, you needed to come up with a way
You needed some way to create conflict.
Yes, that you could have probably done something that didn't involve Jean inadvertently killing this poor pterodon that Bizarro had made friends with. But a minor quibble. One scene that I thought was a good bit of character was the flashback to Artemis when she was Wonder Woman, being told by the PR person for the Justice League that people just don't like you.
Yes, you've sent plenty of people in hospital and some innocents have been caught up in it. But worse than that, you've got 1 million less followers than Diana did before you took over the role.
Which is very in character with who Artemis is. And it sets who she is versus Diana in very stark relief. Since this is a webtoon, it is going out to a much wider and different audience than a normal comic. And Red Hood,
to people like me who don't read any other Red Hood or whatnot, so
right,
I was pretty blind to all this.
Red Hood is a character that people know. He appears in video games. There have been media. He's Jason Todd. He was a Robin. He's a Bat character. So there is a knowledge of him outside of comics. Not as much as there is for, say, Dick Grayson, but people know him. Bizarro is a character who exists in pop culture. Bizarro it's a trope. People know what Bizarro is. Artemis is the character here who the casual fan who might stumble across this on Webtoons after reading Wayne Family Adventures is going to have no frame of reference for. So that scene does a really good job of giving those readers an idea of who this is.
And I like that even though she is the more rash Wonder Woman, when it's clear that something's iffy about this mission, she's the first one to start saying, all right, no, we need to pack this in. Because of Jason Todd being as stubborn as he is, he's at every point when there's a challenge, Jason Todd will always be stubborn. He insists on going on with the mission. Once they finally clear up the misunderstanding with John, he insists on confronting I forget his name. Decay. Yeah. He insists on confronting them because, oh, well, we know it's a trap, so surely since we know it's a trap, it'll be fine. And no, all that ends up doing is giving him access to the idol that he will use to resurrect the Martian people and ruining everything. Even though Jason is the ostensible leader, right now he's the weakest link of the team. Even when he assigns Bizarro to go through a trap, he does it in such a way as to make Bizarro feel like shit. And once again, Artemis is the first to call him out on it. And even in his inner monologue, he's thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But he's too stubborn.
To the point that when you get to the last strip and they're on the watchtower and he has spent 2 days not sleeping trying to hack the JLA watchtower to see the files that he's not supposed to see. Jason's not dumb, but hacker has never been Jason's, strong suit here.
Jason's not dumb, and like I say, each Robin has their own strengths, and Jason is being able to bond with people who've had a rough time of it, who want to do better. But his fatal flaw beyond, well, anything to do with Bruce is once he gets onto a track, he will keep on going for it. It's almost like an obsessive who wants to start a job, they can't rest until that job's finished, even if it doesn't make sense to continue. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to be his thing that he's going to have to go through the rest of the series, since this isn't like Wayne Family Adventures where this is just a bunch of vignettes. This is just part of one long arc. This volume's very much set up, but it's interesting enough that I want to read more.
Yeah, and I think the art's good. I don't think it's quite as strong as the better art on Wayne Family Adventures.
Certainly not as expressive.
No, but it's better than most of the art on any of the Red Hood stuff that came out in his solo series or his team series in the New 52 or Rebirth.
I
Yee.
will say with the art, I think it works a bit better online than it does in print. I think there's just certain things that just don't work as well. When you're dealing with a sequential comedic strip, that's easier to translate into traditional panels than the scrolling webtoons when it's more action-oriented art. Yes, Wayne Family Adventures has its occasional bits of action, but it's otherwise pretty easy to just map it out. So I will forgive that. Well, I'll be less critical of that. Though there are some parts where the backgrounds are just like solid colors or not very interesting. There's some good backgrounds in here, but it's inconsistent.
And as you said, I think that has a lot to do with the translation more than
Yeah.
It's harder to fault the art on that.
Yeah, you don't need those backgrounds because when you're scrolling through it, all that's going to be on your screen when you scroll down a couple of mouse wheel clicks is that panel with the information you need. So a lot of the early Marvel digital comics, like X-Men 92, that had the same problem where it was written for digital first, and when it came to print, it was readable and whatnot. But a lot of like what would be a page turn didn't read like that because it was supposed to be, oh, you were supposed to see this when you scroll down the wheel one time, whereas now it has to appear in the middle of 3 other panels and it's just lost.
And then you have the sort of opposite approach with the DC books, where they are all just one panel at a time, and in the print layout, it's like 2 panel pages, all of them.
The Batman 66 model.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
They're half pages, boom, boom. And it's just like now they stack the half pages together to make a normal page. Very different models.
Point is, it's difficult to translate even something that is a similar medium of webcomic to physical comic. At the very least, it's still readable. I've seen plenty of things that started as physical comics where you go, okay, wait, which order am I supposed to read these panels? And you don't have that problem here at all. One last thing. I don't know if I'll be eating me words when I read the rest of the series, but a lot of Jason's anger Batman reads off as just not liking to be challenged. At the very start, you have that flashback where Batman's telling them, this is the world I've created you to save, but you need to love it, or what's the point? And he's trying to bond with them. And when Jason says, oh, what's the world done for me? And Bruce says, I used to think that way too, obviously alluding to his own trauma. It looks like a great moment of bonding. Then the next flashback you get is Batman shouting Jason down because he's beaten Two-Face to death. And what was most notable about that, which I really liked, was Bruce is trying to talk him down, and you've no idea whether he's being condescending or if he's trying to bond with him, because for the rest of the scene, all of the panels are just blank because Jason, as soon as he's being challenged, is just tuning him out. And that's why it's hard to trust Jason whenever he says, oh, it was never family. Ah, God. Jason Todd is a character that should appeal to me because I got into comics in the 90s. I love those grim, gritty heroes, but he can be so frustrating. Still, I am glad I read this because this is the first Jason Todd helmed book where I didn't want to immediately get rid of it and consider getting out of comics altogether. So,
I mean, there was that really good Jason Todd series that just started. Oh wait, no, there isn't.
Wah, wah.
Okay, before I go off on a rant.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd happily listen, but we've got things to do after this, I'm sure.
I've got a second recording tonight. I could be going on about that until recording.
We putting a title on this here story?
Just Red Hood Outlaw Volume 1.
The same way that simple.
Well, the same way that Wayne Family Adventures works is Volume 1.
Well, isn't that also a Red Hood Outlaws that spins off of Red Hood and the Outlaws? Maybe Red Hood Outlaws Webtoon Volume 1.
Oh, no, that's word too many words.
I think the DC series is Red Hood and the Outlaws. This is just Red Hood : Outlaws.
All right. No, you're right, because the other one I'm thinking of is also Red Hood Rebirth, so you could list it as that.
Yeah.
Of course, that's assuming you'll ever feel masochistic enough to read that stuff for the show, so it might be a moot point.
If at all possible, I would rather not.
I promise you, I will never bring that up to read.
And we appreciate that.
I've got shit comics that we can read together, but there comes a point where forcing myself to read and take serious notes on something I actively hate is a step too far.
There are shit comics that are fun, and then there are shit comics like those Red Hood books that are just bad.
And then there are actual shit comics that are funny.
No,
It's the difference between comics that are bad but interesting to talk about and comics that offend the sensibilities.
my good friend Rob, our Three Amigos episodes over on CXF Interview, Rob has a thesis about media that the greatest sin that something can commit isn't being bad, it's being dull. And those Red Hood comics are not interesting. They're bad and they're plotting, and there's nothing in them that is worth talking about. Something like Batman Odyssey is not good, but
Oh, I would
boy,
read that in a heartbeat compared to. I think your friend's on to something because boring is the worst thing. And the thing about Red Hood and the Outlaws, the new 52, is it starts off offensive and then the rest of it is boring as all hell.
yes.
It has that one moment of, well, this is terrible, but what other things are they going to do to screw things? Oh no, that they're not. Oh, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe this tie-in will do. No. Well, oh, this looks like a commit. No. Well, maybe I do. Right. Oh, he's temporary. Oh.
Yep. Lobdell's gonna come back.
It will always come back.
Now,
Okay.
I'm not saying that it doesn't ever get good because, like I said, I gave up at around the 30s, I think, which is a lot more grace than I give most things.
You know, around the time when they swapped out Arsenal and Starfire for Bizarro and Artemis, I thought it was like, okay, we might be getting something. No, it's still more of the same.
Well, I didn't even get that far, so learning that I've not missed anything is a wonder. I can at least
Don't worry
be
about it.
content.
Don't worry about it. You're better off.
And the fact that we've spent a good 5 minutes talking about a completely different comic that we hate suggests that it might be time to wrap it up.
I think so.
Oh, that means it's time to put Red Hood Outlaws Volume 1 on the big board.
This will be story 648, meaning that 324 is now the midpoint. So the midpoint is currently Batgirl Year 1, which I know you didn't like, Will, but
I'll say one thing in this story's favour for being above it. Name any other Red Hood book that you would consider reading again.
that is a very valid point. Most Red Hood stories, if they're not miniseries or one-offs, are not great. And this did definitely leave me at a point where I'm like, okay, I want to know what happens next. Okay, I'm going to say it does not go above 314. This is not above Brotherhood of the Fist monkey rankings.
No. Hall of Fame right there. I mean, it's a bit trifly, but this is where we have kind of trifle stuff. Like we got Tiny Titans at 331.
The last note I actually put for this was, this is a trifle, but with potential.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we're in the 300s. I think we're safely in the 300s.
I might put it below 332 Deceased. Because that had some, I think that had some stronger emotional beats.
Yes. I would probably. I'm trying to find would be a. Okay, 357 is Under the Red Hood. When that is firing on all cylinders, that is really good. The problem is there's so much Countdown to Infinite Crisis in the middle of that takes us away from Bruce and Jason and their emotional arc and instead deals with Captain Nazi and the hyena working for Black Mask.
Even so, it is a very important text, and that does give it a lot of.
Yeah, I think we're below that, but I think we're right there in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's the right region. I say not having any access to anything you're looking at.
Legend of the Dark Might at 362. The post-crisis Alan Grant, Kevin O'Neill, Bat-Mite story where the guy may or may not be seeing Bat-Mite, or he may just be delusional and talking to Bat-Mite. More character here for sure.
Yeah, I'd say above. So above 362.
So between 357 and 362 is a real narrow window. Okay, so Injustice Year 1, Volume 2. So we're still in the point where the art is all over the friggin' place.
The annual. What's the annual there?
The annual on Year
I
1.
think this is going to decide whether it's going to be above or below.
Gotta remember, because they're all the Injustice stuff blends together. It's hard.
If it's the annual where Bruce is in prison,
No, it's not.
No.
That, I think, is the annual for year 2, I think.
Yeah, this.
No, the annual for year 1 is the Lobo story where he fights a bunch of his own clones, I think.
It's a Lobo story, so
Above.
I am. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to say. Pretty much, we know my feelings about Lobo. So in
New
between,
359?
yes, in between the New 52 Mr. Freeze annual and Injustice Volume 2.
I think that was the most factual work we ever had to do to place a story on the board.
Well, next time I'm here, it'll be a much simpler episode, I promise.
I got to read something I've never read before. That is always fun.
Something that you've never read before, that wasn't terrible.
Yes,
Actually,
that is often the case. That there's if it's something I haven't read before, it is either very old or there's a reason why I avoided it.
or you have read it, but your mind is trying to make you forget it. That's frequently a...
Oh yeah, there's a lot of repressed, hence a lot of the rest of that Jason Todd stuff.
I had that with Countdown this very episode.
Speaking of Jason Todd stuff, Sam, thank you as ever for coming on the show. We appreciate
Yes,
it. We appreciate your support.
You'll continue to have it for as long as I'm able, and I love being on here. It's great to just talk comics with people.
That's it for this week. Next week, we're reading 3 Golden Age stories that feature the first appearances of the 3 most iconic Batcave trophies that aren't, well, the costumes of dead people. The Giant Penny, the Dinosaur, and the Joker card.
And it's definitely not because we were recording another episode on Wednesday.
No, I didn't pick 3 short stories for that reason. Not at all. Remember, you can support the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/batchatwithmatt and Will, where you can get shout-outs, bonus content, pick a story, and even come on the show. We'd like to thank those Patreon backers. Dan Grote, Josh Wheel, Mrs. Abigail Hartbaum, Asma Fangirl, Tony Thornley,
Go Aggies.
Sam Hopper,
Go to bed, Sam. It is 10 o'clock. Bedtime.
5 more minutes, won't it? Surely.
John Wickham,
That beautiful, beautiful, lovely human, John Wickham.
Robert Secundus,
Oh, Bubby. I love you, Bubby.
Tim Rooney, Giorgio Cericcioli, David Wheel,
World's Greatest Gray Belt.
Alexander Wheel, Matt McThorne,
McThorny.
Dan Offer,
Barely knew her.
Nate Randell, Daniel Mosley, Ross Holmes,
Mr. Random Ace.
Will Crisp,
Me compadre.
Carlos Cordova, Jordan Jennings, and Charlie Etheridge Nunn for their support. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music/Audible, YouTube Music, Podbean, and on comicsxf.com, where new episodes drop every Thursday. You can find me on Blue Sky, where I talk about comics and other random things, and Letterboxd, where I review all the movies I watch, both at MattLaz1013.
You can find me against my better judgment still on Twitter at Will Nevin, and I'm not going to bed. Like, I'm gonna put on adult clothes and journey out into the world and I don't know, do stuff the rest of the night. This is weird, man. This is weird. Sam's going to bed, but I gotta stay up. Stay woke, Huntsville.
And be sure to visit ComicsXF at comicsxf.com or ComicsXF on Blue Sky for our weekly Friday Batchat roundup of new Bat books. For my other show, the Comics XF Interview Podcast, where my longtime best friend Dan Grote and I interview comics creators, retailers, publishers, journalists, and other related tradespeople, as well as all the other stuff Will and I are writing. And stay safe out there, folks. Gotham is not a place to be after dark.